This is a conversation with BrickBending, but first I wanted to remind you that we are giving away a brand new Stranger Things Lego set at 5,000 subscribers, so hit that subscribe button. Jeff, so nice to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us. How you doing today?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm doing amazing, man. Thanks for asking. So, BrickBending, how did this take off? How did this get started?
It's a long story. Showing up on TikTok has been the last few months, but I've been doing this for a long while.
Oh, that's exciting.
So the short version of a long story is that when my kids, who are now, they're older teenagers, when they were little, I have two girls, and I had played a lot of Polly Pockets, and I had played a lot of My Little Ponies, and I'm really good at that. They're fun. But then I was like, I'm going to get a toy that I remember liking as a kid to play with you. So Lego was that's one of the things I did when I was a kid, right? That I loved. And so we bought a couple of sets over, the years, and I would play and we would build stuff. And it was just so happened that we were I'm guessing it's hard to and the story gets better and better. It's the fish story, right?
yeah, of course.
I'm guessing that we were building a corral for the horses or something. And we were fishing out all the little 1x2s in the set. And I just saw that they had some play in them when you put them all together. And that just caught my imagination. That's awesome. So we dug through the whole pile until we got every single one, and we had enough to make one full circle. And my mind was just blown because I had, who knows how many hours I spent as a kid playing with Lego bricks, but I'd never built a circle. And it's what happens to people when they see, my TikToks or my Instagram reels. They're just like, what? And so, but once I figured that out, then I was like, well, what else can I do? Because this is just the tip of the iceberg. So, and I got online and I was digging around trying to find other people who did that. And at first I couldn't find anyone. I'm certainly not the first person to ever do it. There are other people who beat me to that by years. But I think it's clear that I'm the most obsessive compulsive about it. Like it is the thing that brings me joy. So trekked off we have a local Lego store here in Portland, Oregon. And I went and bought, 1,000 1x2s and just started building circles and intersecting circles. And at the time, I didn't really understand what I was venturing into, but I had quietly discovered the visual artist in me. And it took me years to really even self-apply that term, right? It's like, oh no, I'm not an artist. I just make cool things that I like to look at and I stick on a wall. And then after like 5 or 6 years, I'm like, okay, this is what I do. So,
well, let me affirm you. All of my followers and myself consider you probably one of the most amazing Lego artists out there. So you are for sure an artist, my friend.
Thank you very much.
So when did you join TikTok and how did it kind of take off? Because you've got a massive following now on TikTok and you haven't been on very long, right?
Yeah, I just after the beginning of the year. My daughters are 16 and 19, and I've heard them talk about TikTok and I'm 46. So I was just like, yeah, that's what the young people do, right? That's alien territory. I'm not going there. But it was probably maybe middle of last year, during the pandemic and quarantine where I went, I'm going to try to revive my YouTube presence. I had done a Kickstarter project, in 2011. And I created a bunch of videos about how I do what I do. And that was cool. And part of the project was stick them all on YouTube. And then I just kind of left them there for 7 or 8 years and I lived my life, working my job and take care of my kids. And so it was last year that I kind of spun back up the idea of my YouTube channel. And I was just creating some content and winging it. And that's when one of my daughters kind of pointed out that maybe you should try TikTok. So I got the app and I just experimented a little bit, threw a few things out there, and then I put some like 6 or 7 seconds. I think it's still on there. It's a little yellow star-like thing that flexes. Yeah. And I put it out there and I got like 40,000 views. And I showed that to my daughter. I'm like, is that good? And she's like, that's great. So then I just kept sticking things out there and not really understanding what I was doing. And it was about mid-February that just kind of on a lark, I was like, well, I'll just put the classic circle out there. I've done a circle a million times. I put it on YouTube 3 or 4 different times. You know, I have hundreds of circles. They're like piles of circles. So I just threw that one circle on there, and it got 1 million views within a couple of days. And I mean, you know what this is like, right? That number's so big, it's just insane. You're just like, what?
Yeah.
And so it was about mid-February, things started to take off, and I like to think that I've got progressively better at, you know, how to create the content, and upgraded my equipment to some degree. And now I'm just having a blast. Like, it's so much fun. And
what I love about your channel is that you have the most incredible continuity from video to video. Your style is very much your style. Every video, you can tell your branding is perfect. When someone, I always know when someone tags me in a video that's all white and like a title up top and title on bottom, I know exactly what I'm getting into. And so, yeah, I absolutely enjoy watching your content because you really see yourself shine through that. So that's really cool. But, you know, let's put Lego on pause. We'll get back to Lego. Everyone wants to talk about Lego, but I want to know, who's Jeff? So tell me about yourself right now.
Oh gosh. I'm a man of many qualities. Now, I mean, one of the things about me is that I'm kind of restless, right? I am always wanting to do something new, and that's a driving force in my life. Sure. And my life has come through different phases where, you know, in my 20s, I had a dream of being a writer. Spent a bunch of time writing, and I've written a couple plays, and that didn't really work out in terms of supporting my family. So I had moved on from that. And then I went back to school, and I'm like, let's go back and do something that I was good at, you know, back in the day. So I went back to school in math, and I kind of started over from scratch, and got into grad school for math education. I was teaching math classes, and I was enjoying that. It was great. But then I got a job offer to work in software. So I left all that behind, and then I went into the software industry, and I've been doing that for 14 years now. And during the course of doing software and raising my kids, that's when I discovered Lego, and that came into my life. So there's not one thing that I've ever stuck to. I'm always looking for the next new cool thing. And I think that's part of why I love what I do, because the endless supply of things to explore. So I think that's kind of a quintessential part of who I am. I am a explorer of the new.
I love that. Do you recall your first Lego set?
Oh, no. And that is because I come from a very big family, and I've got older brothers. And so there was always just a box of bricks, right? And I definitely, the space sets, you know, from the 80s are the ones that I know I got at least a couple of those. But for the most part, I spent my childhood chasing after the creations of my older brothers that were infinitely better than what I could build, right? And I think that's also part of baked into how I approach Lego. It's just this constant like chip on my shoulder. I gotta do something better than my big brother Mike.
It's funny that you mentioned the box of Lego, because have you listened to the podcast before?
I have not.
You have not? Okay. So one of the things that we do is in our transitions between different segments, we use the sound of Lego being moved around in a box, and the fans love it. But something that no one knows, right? This is the first time this is being released, is I've gone to various people in the Lego community who I know who have fairly good microphones and said, hey, can you just send me a clip of you messing around with a box of Lego? And so all of those transitions are actually from various people who I've had conversations with, who I've worked with. So I'm going to ask you, Jeff, would you mind, after all this is said and done, can you give me a clip of you messing around with some Lego inside your box?
Oh, 100%. And I don't know, like, because I think part of what I do is either delights or horrifies various people depending on their predilections, right? Yeah. And it was one of those TikToks that I put out where you can catch the sound of the bricks bending, that kind of creaking. Mm-hmm. And I immediately got requests like, oh, can you just do a full video of that? So I do have that sound clip of just 15 layers of 1x2s bending, the creaking sound.
Oh, you gotta send it to me, man. That is awesome. So there's two sides of the Lego community, right? Illegal builds are bad, evil, should never be done. And illegal builds are how you explode out of the box. You are very clearly on one side. But let me ask you, have you had run-ins? I know from a comment on my previous video, I know the answer, but tell me about some of those run-ins with the other side, the people who think that brick bending is bad.
Well, it's funny because I've been doing this for about 10 years. And for the first probably nine and a half of those years, I never experienced any negative pushback. And part of that is that, you know, it's a very narrow set of people that I'm dealing with. And in the more of the art world, you know, it's nothing but positives. So it was really TikTok where I got my first real taste of the Lego purists out there. And it's so funny because I am the least controversial person. Like my personality is peacemaker, facilitator. That's what I do. Sure. And so to find myself at the center of this absolutely benign controversy is hilarious and entertaining, and I have got a huge kick out of it.
I love it, man. That's so funny.
It reminds me of I used to be a big Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, largely because I grew up in Utah and there are no professional football teams there, so I had to pick somebody. And of course, I picked the biggest underdog in the history of sports.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. But back in the day, they had a player named Warren Sapp, who was defensive tackle, and he just loved to be the bad guy. And he would stand in the stadiums and the opposing teams and just bask in the glory of their boos, right? But it was all fun, ultimately. And I have kind of picked up a little of that, where I'm like, at the end of the day, right, it's a beautiful toy that we all get to play with, and it's an amazing thing. And I totally appreciate that people really, they are never going to do this. It breaks their heart, and the bricks are precious to them, and I totally appreciate that. But from my perspective, this is what I do, and I absolutely love it. And I think
Jeff Sanders is the Warren Sapp of the Lego community. I love it. That's going to be the title.
I'll take that.
Podcast. I'll take that. I love that. So that's exciting. So I want to know, what is your process? How do you go from concept in your head to art in a show?
Oh, that's a great question. There's not one process, but there is one predominant process. And part of it is that, I mean, and you know this very well, right? Lego's scarce. It is expensive, right? And so if I dream up what I want to make, then it's a lot more, it's harder to get the bricks, it's expensive to purchase them. And so just out of necessity, I've developed this process where, you know, I will hit the Lego store in Portland here every, few months, and I just see what's on the wall and I'll buy a bunch. And especially if it's a strange.
You're talking about the pick-a-brick wall?
Yes, the pick-a-brick wall. And more often than not, when I find a strange brick that I've never used before and I buy it, it ends up on a shelf for a year or 2 years. And then just kind of out of nowhere, just because of boredom, I'm out of bricks and I don't know what to build. And so I just grab these strange ones down and I start playing with them. And then something crazy comes out of it. And that's really what I'm looking for. Like my primary process is get a pile of bricks, usually all the same kind, put them on the table in front of me, and just start to play with them until something I've never seen comes out of it.
Love that.
And 9 times out of 10, that thing that I've never seen is not interesting. So it just goes back in the bin.
Sure.
But every now and then something pops out of that just exploration and play that catches my imagination, and then it starts to unfold. So I think it's most of what I do is, at the end of the day, profoundly simple. It's one brick iterated 1,000 times, but it's that iteration that just creates something that is utterly unlike anything you would typically see in bricks. And sometimes I feel like I'm a miner, whether I'm a Bitcoin miner or gold miner, right? I'm out there mining for some unique, crazy combination that just makes me delighted. And that's usually how I go about things.
What is the most useful part that you include the most in your builds?
1x2s.
1x2s. I know. I knew that from asking, just because I've seen all of your stuff, and that 1x2 comes up so frequently.
It is the secret ingredient in anything that's curved in a classic way. And whether it's a big crazy build that's full of 2x8 bricks, if there's a curve in it, the 1x2s are what creates that. Definitely though, any of the plates, any like the 1x4 plate, the 1x6 plate, one of the big crazy thing behind me, the big hexagonal thing, that's all just plates. And when you get the longer plates,
really?
Yeah, the longer plates let you kind of hinge at a point. And so bricks, I started with a lot of bricks early on, but now like almost everything I do is in plates, just because there's so many more things you can do with it.
Sure. And naturally I feel like the plates probably have a little bit more give than the bricks, right?
Yeah, it's true.
I saw a piece of your work that was absolutely incredible, but it was the one that was curved. It looks kind of like a motorcycle tire. It's all black and it's got the curved slopes. But I noticed you don't use a ton of tiles or slopes. Is that by design or is that by necessity?
I use tile in very specific circumstances. And I mean, I really like tile. I love that look, that kind of just, when the studs go away, it really obfuscates what you have, right? Especially with my work. If I put the outer layer was all tile, you literally would have no idea that it's made out of Lego. And I've actually found that does me a disservice, right? Like over the years, when I'm outside of the Lego community, most people have no idea what medium I use. And like one of my favorite stories is I did a big art festival in the Middle East, in the United Arab Emirates.
Yeah, what was the name?
It was the Sharjah Islamic Art Festival.
Yeah, I went in studying for this interview. I went back and I looked at all of that, and that was absolutely incredible.
It was a life-changing experience. It was just shockingly amazing.
That's cool.
But part of what was magical about that is I would meet these other artists, and they would kind of walk by my exhibit, my build, and they'd kind of look at it and go, "Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, well, nice to meet you," and walk off. And then the next day, they'd come running up to me and be like, "Oh my gosh, I just went and looked at your piece, and it's made out of Lego." And I'm like,
"Yeah, right."
Yeah. From a distance, it looks like I just got a CNC router or some kind of laser etcher, and I cut out a piece of acrylic, and that would be interesting, But like, no, like this is constructed out of a children's toy that it's not designed to do this. And then, and of course, like their eyes would light up because they played with Lego as a kid. So it's literally the world's favorite medium. It's just, it's universal I mean, you think about it, like, yeah, it's totally universal, but then you end up in the Middle East with artists from around the world, and they all love Lego. Yeah. It's absolutely amazing.
We're in the middle of, well, I shouldn't say the middle. We're in the beginning stages of working on a documentary about the Lego community. And I had a conversation in pitching the documentary with someone, and we had talked about other documentaries, right? And there was one about other successful Netflix documentaries specifically. And there was one about cutting meat, and it was very successful, about competition steak cooking. And what the guy said to me, why he was interested in getting involved with it, was because he said, we were in a coffee shop, and he said, if you took everyone in this coffee shop and asked them if they'd ever been into competition steak cooking, you would probably get maybe one, maybe two at most. Like if you're in the heart of Texas, maybe two. But if you asked that same group of people, if they had ever played with Lego, or if Lego was ever a big part of their life, you would get 99.9% who said yes. So it's really interesting how this passion for Lego, when you truly peel back the layers, everyone has all of their own different ways that they like to utilize the medium. But if you peel back all the layers, it is a universal experience. And I think that's so beautiful, because we don't have, as a human species, we don't have many universal experiences that are pleasant, right? Like we think about the pandemic, everybody experienced that. That's a universal experience that is ingrained in everyone, but it's not necessarily a positive one, right? I think everyone at some point felt fear, anxiety, lost their jobs, on and on. But when we come back to Lego, I've never met someone who has been like, oh, I hate Lego. They just don't exist. So it's really cool that you're able to capture that in your art, and that's absolutely amazing, my friend.
Thank you.
So let me ask you this: do you have a favorite piece? A favorite art piece that you've created?
Not one. I've got a couple that are near and dear to my heart. One of them is call it the Sunstone, and it's made entirely of yellow 1x4 plates.
Nice.
And it's very symmetrical, but it's also really, really intricate. And part of the reason why I love it is because when in the early days, when I had my Kickstarter project, and for the first time I had, a couple of $1,000s to buy bricks with. So I was at the Lego store like every chance I could get. I was a kid in a candy shop, and they have, yellow 1x4s. And so I bought, back in the day when you could buy a box, right? They don't do that anymore, at least as far as I know. But I was like, hey, can I just have a whole box of them? So they handed one to me. So I have, something like 5,000, 6,000 of these 1x4s. I have no idea what I was going to do with them. And it took me months, because I would iterate it and I'd kind of look at it and be like, nah, I don't really like that very much. And I'd take that layer off and I'd add another layer. And then when it was all said and done, it just felt complete. It felt finished. It's incredibly simple in the fact that it's just one kind of brick, just one. Yeah. But it's visually stunning to look at. It's just, and I'm less so now, but I'm kind of afraid of color. You can kind of see that back here. Like black is just a safe, neutral color to work with, the lack of color. And so, and I didn't choose, I would have chosen black 1x4s. Sure. That would have been preference. But the yellow is just beautiful. I've always loved it. And so that one particularly has always been special to me. And then there's the second one. I'm terrible at naming, because I create so many things and I can't name them all. So I just use whatever technical name I can think of.
Sure.
But I have one that I call, I think it's the Heptanalyst 44.
Very artistic name from the math guy.
I know. I used to ask, my kids what I name things, and they give me wonderful, crazy, imaginative names, and I'm like, nope, it's Heptanalyst 44. But it's basically a series of rings, so it's the circles, and then analyst is I think it's the Greek word for ring, and hept is the number of rings, so it's got 7 rings, and then 44 it's got 44 spokes. So it's just rings and straight lines. But if you flash back to your math days, right, it's just like the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter is pi, right? And so if your circumference is 100 Lego studs, then your diameter is going to be something like 30.175 studs. Like you can't do
that. And so how did you get that to work?
It's trick. A little secret. No, the real thing is, at the end of the day, whatever build you make, it has a scale, right? And so I can make a circle that's 150 studs around, and that will just so happen to line up with some fraction of a number. But as you go and look at all the number of studs, you just so happen to land every now and then on one that just works. It's not precise, but it's close enough. right?
Love that.
And so through a lot of trial and error and then a little bit of calculation, I try to stay away from actually doing math whenever I can, because this is not a cerebral process. I love that it's kind of a visceral kind of feeling process. But once I kind of figured out what the correct ratio was, then it all worked. So it is just this beautiful combination of straight lines and circles it's just part of what I love about it is that the fact that it works, it's baked into the nature of the bricks themselves, right? It's just, it is math and art and Lego all coming together at once. So my dream is to take that build and see how big I could make it one day. I'd love to see it 15 feet tall. That would be amazing.
It would be. Now, so I'm not a math guy, but from my, elementary school days, because of the spokes, it shouldn't matter how big it is, correct? Like you should, in theory, be able to carry that.
I think the only problem would be that every single ring you're dealing with a ratio, and I think that it's not exactly the same. So it could be that there's a little bit of error in the small rings.
Sure.
And then as you add error, as you go out, it gets harder and harder. So
that would be where it failed. Okay, interesting though, because that's an incredible concept. I would love to get behind you on that. I think it'd be really cool to find a way to get you out there to build something huge, maybe for like a children's hospital or so something cool like that.
100%. Well, my whole end game, what I've been doing this for years, is that I want to have an exhibition, like a full scale, Nathan Sawaya-esque exhibition. So, I mean, people ask me all the time, do you sell your stuff? And I'm like, I'll consider it, but I'd have to for enough. They're hard. I mean, they're all one of a kind, and the Lego are hard to come by, so they're expensive to replace. So, and I've actually been in discussions with a couple of different groups about a potential exhibit, which, Nathan Sawaya came to town probably in 2012 here in Portland, and they had some extra space at the Children's Museum, or the Oregon Museum of Science and History, where they had it, and they asked me if I would put some of my stuff on display alongside it, and I was like, "You're kidding? Yes." And so they hung like 12 or 13 of my smaller pieces at the time, and to see my work professionally hung and lit next to that amazing set of Lego art I was hooked. From that, I
just got goosebumps, and it's not even my work.
It was so just cool. Utterly just joy. I would sneak back in and just watch people walking by and looking at it and poking, gently poking at things, and like, oh, don't blow up. But everything. Well,
so that was actually my next question was, do you use glue?
No.
Nothing.
I do not. Now, I'm not, theoretically, I'm not against it. I am against it, right? It's the Craggle, right? It's just my nature not to want to glue it. But if I needed to, in order to have a real traveling exhibition, I had to do some gluing, I would do that. But I would avoid it at all costs. And part of what's interesting is especially the curving things, because I put the bricks under some stress, that makes them quite rigid.
Yeah.
So they're actually really strong. And like if your typical Lego set, if you drop it 2 or 3 feet, it is just explodes, right?
But yours don't.
Some of them will, but most of them won't.
So I need to ask, mostly for my listeners, how do you transport these pieces to be hung on? And then how do you hand them to someone who's going to hang that art? Like, what is that process like? What's your transport process like?
Well, it is not adequate. So what I have a bunch of foam core sheets, I've got from art supply stores that are like 4x4. And so, I have a small SUV. And so I'll just lay down the back seat, put down some foam core, put a design on it, another foam core, another design. And they're sliding around in the back of the car as I'm driving to where I'm going. So in the long term, like when I did my Kickstarter project, one of the rewards was I would build you a full scale, like 3 foot wide design, and 5 or 6 people took me up on it. And I shipped one to England. I shipped one to the UK. So I figured out how I could package and ship them, mostly because they are so stable.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. So the future will be that I'll have like wooden cases that I will use to help get them from A to B. But totally. in the local scene, I just kind of wing it. And if some of them fall apart, I just put it back together when I get there. So.
Yeah. Okay. How often does that happen?
They'll always lose a couple of pieces, right?
Always. Yeah. Of course.
5,000 pieces and 5 1x2s fall off. Is finding where they fell off and sticking them back on. That's the challenge.
I bet. I'll never forget that my first experience, we built the Ecto 1, and the Ecto 1 has a really silly design because on one side the door handle is set like a suicide door, so it's on the rear of the door, and on the other side it's set on the front of the door, which doesn't really make much sense. But I'm building it on live, and a fan comments, "Hey, I think your door handle's wrong." And without even looking at the instructions to make sure, I looked at it and said, "Oh, that is wrong, because why would Lego do that, right?" So I took it all apart, not in order, and then tried to find a way to put it all back together the other way, and that's how I found out that it was completely impossible to put it on. So then I had to reassemble not in order, not using the instructions, and I learned how hard it is to spot where a piece is missing. It took 45 minutes just looking at one 2x1 and going, where does this go?
Where could this possibly go?
Yeah, exactly. So I imagine you go through some piece of that.
There was this amazing moment where the build I did for the Charlotte Islamic Art Festival was 10 square meters. It was 2 meters high and 5 meters wide. It was massive. And I walked into the exhibit space, and there was one Lego kind of laying on the floor that had fallen off. And I'm just standing there with this one brick, looking at this 75,000 piece monstrosity going, okay, here we go. And of course, it's big and symmetrical, right? It's not like there's a whole bunch of those pieces. So I found it eventually.
You did? Oh, wow. I was going to ask, do you ever just go, not today?
Yes. Yeah. I have a cup of just the random pieces I find. I go, I'll figure that out one day.
One day we'll come back. That's awesome. So what's the future look like for BrickBending? Are you looking to make this into a profession? Like what are you going to sell? Custom art? Like what's next?
That's a great question. And I mean, 6 months ago, I would have said, well, it's clearly more than a hobby, right? And I used to use the term hobby, and I don't anymore. It's an obsession, a passion. Like, this is something that I deeply, deeply love. And I've always looked at what I've done, and I love it, clearly, right? That's why I do it. I just love it. Right. And I've had enough experience over the years to go, well, there are at least a few people out there who also think it's really good. But TikTok just changed my trajectory entirely, right? All of a sudden, it's like, no, it's 500,000 people like this. Yeah. And so, I mean, I would love to do this full time. It would be an amazing thing, but it's like, how? I also have no desire to be a starving artist. I've met enough starving artists. I've been a starving artist. And so how do I find a way that I don't turn it into a job?
Yeah.
Totally. And it can still keep that kind of the magic and that spark that's part of it, and still make some money at it. And that's part of why I've never just built and sold pieces of art, because then it's just, I don't want to build the same thing over and over and over again. So that's why, with eyes on the prize, like, I think that an exhibition is really where it's at, because that's a bunch of unique pieces. I think that I can share what I do with thousands and thousands of people who may want to see it. And the other thing is YouTube, right? It's like, TikTok has been great, but the TikTok Creator Fund leaves a little something to be desired.
Oh boy.
I was watching Hank Green's stuff on that the other day, and I was like, you go, Hank, you go.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be amazing if TikTok would just step up to the plate and pay people what they really deserve.
Yeah, from what I've heard is that the money's there, and the plan is to increase exponentially in the coming years. But they got picked up by some big hedge fund who basically said, we want you to go kill YouTube. And so they're rolling out the next 5 years a bunch of stuff that will eventually hopefully put them in the competition with YouTube. But it is in the plan to increase beyond what we get paid, but it's still, you're right, it hurts. It hurts.
And I'm not a, like, I understand that they're a business, right? And at the end of the day, I don't have any understanding of what they're actually dealing with in terms of like their profit and loss and whatnot. But
sure.
But I suspect that there's more money out there than they're currently giving.
For sure, absolutely.
And on the YouTube front, like, that's part of what happened with TikTok is when I suddenly realized, like, actually there is an audience and there's a massive audience for this. Mm-hmm. So I've circled back to YouTube, and I've been trying to figure out, it's a very different medium, and trying to figure out like how I navigate that space. I mean, one thing I love about TikTok is the music, right? Mm-hmm. I'm just like, I had somebody call me the CEO of music for TikToks, and it just tickled my heart because that's part of the joy of it. Like, I make my video and I have no idea what music I'm going to use.
Lose a lot when you wind up going over to YouTube. Well, one tool that I've found that really helps me is there's a program. It is paid for, or it is a for-profit program called Epidemic Sound. This isn't a plug for them. We're not sponsored by them. I just use them, and they have the closest to production quality sound and songs that you could actually like. I've wound up going through there and going, why isn't this on the radio? You know, like why isn't this? So there's a lot of really good music on there, and you can pick between like what mood you're looking for, how long you want it, all of that. And it's 100% royalty free after you pay for your subscription. So check it out. It may help you, but yeah, that's one of the hard things for us is when we exploded, I knew right away I wanted to migrate some fans over to YouTube, and it just wound up being so difficult. What's your subscriber count on YouTube right now?
2,800, I think.
20. See, it's like less than a fraction of you're 552,000 on.
Yeah, right thereabouts. And I think part of that, and it's part of the magic of TikTok, right, is that the algorithm they have and the whole model, it looks for virality, and I got to give them credit for that. Like, it's a pretty amazing process, and YouTube clearly doesn't do that. So and I love like the amount of people who hypothesize and postulate about the TikTok algorithm and how to game it, and the same with the YouTube algorithm. But I suspect that YouTube is far more about the long slog. It's just like, if you're here producing content all the time, we'll reward you for that. So
yeah, I'm leaving my job to go full time into this.
Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you. And one of the things that we identified as a need to grow was you have to pretty much do a video a day on YouTube. And it's just such a daunting task for someone who's trying to hold off and work another job or whatever. So yeah, YouTube is a fickle friend. But I have to say, I started my YouTube, or my passion for Lego, at least wanting to be an influencer or a part of the community, was watching YouTube videos. So I didn't come to TikTok and go, wow, this can happen. I came to YouTube and said, I wonder if this could succeed on TikTok. So I know it's out there. You have people like Jang Bricks and Iminar Productions who have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers on YouTube. So whatever I can do to support you, to help you grow on YouTube, I'd love to partner with you on that somehow.
Much appreciated, my friend.
Of course. So, all right, here we go. Here's some questions that we had people send us. You can pass if you want.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Your favorite 3 Lego TikTokers.
Oh, my favorite 3 Lego TikTokers. Well, you obviously.
Exclude me. Exclude me. Beyond me.
I mean, there's a ton of great ones out there, right? And Master Builder Alec.
Yes,
like, he's so good. He's so good.
The
and
personality is just so rich.
And his content is great. And I actually, he did a video because, of course, like everyone asks you about me, like, what do you think of BrickBending? Please tell me you don't like him. And they did the same thing to him. And so he did a video saying, hey, I love Jeff's work. It's great stuff. And here's some of the geometric things I've built. And he just kind of flashed this little green or black thing he had, little sphere-like thing. And it caught my eye and I was like, what was that?
Yeah.
So I went back to the video and I paused it and I looked at it. I'm like, I have those bricks. I've had them in a cup on my shelf for like 5 years and I've never used them. And so I built what he built and I keep it on my shelf and it's his creation, right? And maybe someday we'll do some kind of collab together. But I just sent him a message. I'm like, you're the first person to build something out of crazy geometry where I felt jealous. I'm like, I didn't figure that out. Oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's
awesome.
He is awesome. And of course, Tiago, with all of his great stuff. Like his look is so clean. His work is so good. His YouTube work is really, really good.
Yeah.
Ninjago babes out there, Easy Craftsman, and like there's a bunch of great people out there. And that was part of what was so interesting and amazing when I first kind of found TikTok and then realized there was Lego on TikTok, and then I was part of Lego TikTok. It was finding people like you out there and just going, wow, this is a cool community.
That is awesome.
Of people who clearly love these crazy little plastic bricks.
So let me ask you this. Was there a video or something that you saw? What creator inspired you to become, I'm gonna do this. I want to try.
Oh gosh. I mean, there's a bunch of them. And part of it is, you know, I watch videos and I like and appreciate these people, but I don't actually know their real name per se, because all I see is their videos. And then their @ handles are all social all over the place. And so I'm going to totally screw it up, but I think it's Jason Alleman. No, I'm going to say that wrong. He did the climbing fireman recently, and
yes. Yeah.
Apologies out there if you listen to this. Like
no worries.
His work is so awesome. It's so clever and it's so mechanical. And like I've seen a bunch of his stuff over the years, and I just went, oh, I would love to do that. And on YouTube as well. Like seeing these things on YouTube, going, I could totally myself doing that. So
that's neat. Okay, do you ever build sets, or do you only stick with your art?
I have not purchased a set and built it in forever.
Yeah.
I am almost exclusively non-set. Like I get at the Lego store when I buy, you know, a lot of pick a brick, they'll give me something free. And so I built things with friends and friends' kids. But I think one thing that does make me very different than most Lego aficionados out there is that when I see bricks, I don't want to make them look like something else, right? My inclination isn't to make it look like a house or a car or represent something. I want to create abstract geometry out of it. And I can't tell you why that's the case. That's just how my brain is wired. And so that get my joy. And that's why it's just like finding bricks, and like I just love the bricks for what they are, as opposed to trying to make them into something else.
Love that. That's incredible. Okay, so that was all the fan questions that we had. Now I've got my cards. We did this with Moto on the last episode and it turned out really fun. So
let's go for it.
These are going to be non-Lego related questions that are geared towards getting to know you better. They are deep and shallow. If you feel uncomfortable, just give me a hard pass, okay? Going from the middle of the deck, we got Ooh, love this question. If you can instantly become one, what would you want to be an expert in?
Oh gosh, if I could instantly become an expert in something, like quantum physics.
Ooh, nice.
Only because it's absolutely, it's insane, right? And it's like I've always been kind of an armchair science person for years, and I do my best, and I've got a math background, so, and that stuff is so crazy town that it doesn't matter. I think it was Feynman who said, if you think you understand quantum physics, you don't know quantum physics. So that would be it.
It's hard. Quantum physics is a real difficult thing. My uncle teaches quantum physics at Cornell.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah. So, but it's hard because I will try to grapple with very rudimentary quantum physics concepts, and it will give me the worst existential crisis I've ever had. Like, I will sit in bed with my wife and just like, nothing's real. You know,
like the dual slit experiment. It's a wave and a particle at the same time.
Yeah. So I think my answer would probably be, I would like to be, do you know Props to History on TikTok?
I don't, but I will
Amazing channel. He just focuses on like props from movies and talks about their historical background, you know, what they were made out of, all of that. That fascinates me beyond almost anything else. And so I think I would want to become an expert in like movie props, movie history, that type of stuff.
That would be pretty cool.
All right, next question. Ooh, this is good. You haven't gotten any of the like really deep ones. What are you most excited about right now?
Oh, what am I most excited about right now? The possibility of an actual touring exhibition. So I'm in a couple of conversations, and you know, one of them's near term, one of them's kind of a little farther down the road, but that is just like, when I talk about like playing with Lego and experimenting and finding that little spark, that little bit of magic, I look at that and that I have the exact same experience. I'm like, I want to put together the largest, craziest, most amazing set of geometric Lego art creations I can possibly create, and see that traveling the world. That would just be pure joy.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, it's funny. I think my most excited thing that I'm most excited for right now is sitting down and talking with you on the podcast. I mean,
oh, well played,
yeah,
sir. Well played.
Yeah. Okay. What is your most treasured possession and why?
Oh, that's a really good question.
And you can't say like I think typical answers we've gotten in the past have been like wedding ring, or, you know, like make it something juicy. Make it something that's not tied to, you know, your wife or something. You know?
I was gonna say, like, my wife and kids can't be counted in that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my most treasured possession. That's a really good question. Oh, how about you answer it first? Give me a chance to think about it for a minute. What's your most treasured possession?
Okay, so yeah, I actually have one that's very, very interesting, very, you know, odd. My dad and my stepmother, they go to Uganda and all these other places with Doctors Without Borders. My dad is a longtime fire chief. He's been a paramedic for over 30 years now. So, and he brought me back. I'm also a very spiritual person. And it's something that he and I have never really connected on. And so he brought me back this pipe. I don't smoke. I've never smoked, but he brought me back a pipe. And on the front of it is this very, like, you can tell it's got like puka shells for the eyes, and the nose is like pinched together, but it's like a clay face. And the pipe itself is made out of a very specific type of dirt. And it's got a root that comes out that's been hollowed for I guess the inhalation, whatever. And what he said is that the pipe was he was talking about me, and one of the people there gave him this pipe because they said that it had been passed down for a long time, and they didn't have, like in America we have pictures of like Jesus and stuff. They never had seen any of that. And so they created this face of Jesus on this pipe. And of course, it's the beautiful thing about it is it's an Ethiopian face, right? And he said when people were passing or on, you know, on their way out, they would light this pipe and they would smoke and basically inhale the grace of Christ. And I'm almost teary-eyed right now. Like the fact that my dad, who is not, you know, is not religious at all, would get that to me because he was talking about me in that manner. Like, whoa, man. It was so cool. So I have that. It came with a warning. They were like, never inhale from this pipe because the type of dirt they use is like super noxious to people who haven't been, you know, around it the entire life. So it just sits in my closet, but it's an amazing thing. It is hands down my most deepest loved possession.
Oh, that's awesome. I think that's like part of that, right? Is that it has a meaning to you that is beyond just the object itself.
Right, exactly.
Right. And I have probably 4 or 5 pieces of art that were created by, whether they were artists at the festival that I attended that were given to me as gifts, or my dad has discovered his passion for art in retirement. And so I have a couple of paintings from him and a couple of good friends who've made us some beautiful pieces of art. Like if the house was on fire, like those would be the things that I'd run for, because I could build all the Lego again, right? And all the other things, but those things are utterly irreplaceable. So I think that's a really interesting, great question, because it's funny that it does come back to more art.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful answer. Okay, last one. Here we go. I'm going to go from the middle of the deck because I want to make sure we get a juicy one here. Ooh. Oh, this is fun. I like this one. This one I've never seen. I've seen a lot of these questions and I've never got this one. Which band, dead or alive, would you want to play at your funeral and why?
Oh, gosh. That's a tricky one, right? Because it's the funeral.
Right, exactly.
Very different if maybe you could play with them. It changes over time.
Sure.
And the other thing is the music that I like. My kids used to call it daddy's dying music. Because
very appropriate then.
I have this predilection for like minimalism. Philip Glass was one of my big, like if I had to pick one, it would just be Philip Glass, because there was a 10-year stretch of my life where that's all I listened to. Wow. And you don't know Philip Glass, like some of it is almost unlistenable. It is so out there. And then other parts of it are absolutely beautiful. But right now, if it were today, there's an artist called Nils Fromm, who's I believe he's German.
Sorry, one more time.
Nils Fromm, NILSFRAHM. And if you go find him on Spotify and listen to him for a little bit, and you'll get a terrifying peek at the inside of my brain, right? It's incredibly repetitive and meditative. And a lot of people, especially my kids, when they were young, they were just like, why do you listen to this? This is crazy.
That's awesome.
Like, I don't know. It just fills my heart with joy. So I would have Nils play at my funeral, and everyone there would just be like, I don't think we can sit through this. This is because it's not for everyone, right?
We're appetizers.
I mean, I think it should be for everyone, and I think he's an amazing artist, but I would prefer to have Nils just play at something I could attend. So the funeral, I don't know.
I have one artist like that who's like, I love them so much that I go and show people them, and everyone who I've showed has been like, okay. And it's a guy named Cosmo Sheldrake, and he does a lot of cosmic style music, but his instruments are sound effects. So he will like slap the mud and use that and then like put that on repeat, and he will break glass, and he will, and then he finds ways of turning things into instruments that aren't instruments. So he'll take like a glass pipe and cut a piece out and then put a string on it and just like play through the pipe with the string. Like he's one of the most creative and incredible artists. And it's funny because I found him. He had a song called Come Along that was in an advert for a Jeep Wrangler. And I heard it and I was like, what is that song? And I went and I used my that app that like you can listen to music and it'll tell you what it is.
Shazam, I think.
Yeah, Shazam. So I used that and it gave me this artist, and I love him to death. I think if I was to have one play at my funeral, though, I'm a lot nicer to the people who I love than you. I would go with the Eagles. The Eagles. I have an Eagles tattoo. I'm a diehard Eagles fan.
Oh, well played. So I'll amend my answer to for everyone else there, right? Nils
Sure.
would be for me, but I wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
It would be Ray Charles.
Oh yes,
So-
we have a follower named Louis he's one of my lead moderators, and he loves Ray Charles. Ray Charles.
I just used Ray Charles for my latest TikTok yesterday.
Yeah.
And I had him playing at my wedding with my wife and I, and talk about his instrumental work. I mean, his songs are nice when he's singing, but his hands, he's got liquid fingers. It's insane.
He does. He's amazing. Favorite Ray Charles song? Go.
I think it's called 16 Bars, Sweet 16. He has a whole instrumental album that I don't know what the names of them are because I just listened to it 100,000 times. Anything that's
awesome.
Ray Charles doing instrumental, just glorious.
Kind of along that same vein. What music do you listen to while you're creating, or is it a silent process?
No, that's it. I mean, Nils Fromm is a big one. There's a bunch in the mix, and I'm going to say their names wrong because there's a lot of European artists. So there's another guy named Olafur Arnolds, and I mean, basically, if I pick one of those players on Spotify and then it just goes into a playlist, it's very meditative, and it's part of what was amazing about the festival in the UAE that I attended was meeting all of these other people who all these are artists who operate like I do.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think that one thing about building your typical Lego set, right? Like the Colosseum, is that every click is kind of different than the next one. It's all these different pieces in all these different ways, versus most of what I do is incredibly repetitive. And so I'm not building the repetitive thing because I enjoy repetitively clicking things together. I'm actually after something. Yeah. And so I met artists who would hand draw just these geometric designs, and they'd have 60,000 hand-drawn pen lines, right? And if you think about a hand-drawn pen line with a ruler, one mistake and you've screwed up hundreds of hours of work. And that terrifies me because I make a mistake, I just click the brick off, put a new one back on, it's all good.
Exactly, yeah.
And for them, it was like what I do times 100. Like for them, it's like, I don't sit down and draw these lines unless I am in a meditative place where I'm not gonna screw this up. And I loved that. I absolutely loved the fact that there were all of these people who, for them, repeating something over and over and over again is not this dull, boring process. It's a meditation.
You're my people.
Yes, and we, one of my friends I met there, Liliana, she called us the pattern family.
I love that.
People who just love patterns. And yeah, I love that very much too. I was like, finally,
somebody gets it.
We're crazy in the same way. That's amazing.
That is really amazing. Jeff, so as we wind down here, is there anything that you want to plug right now?
Well, find my YouTube channel.
Is it just BrickBending on YouTube?
Yeah, you mean you could find BrickBending on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and I've popped it around a few other places, toying with some other spots. But definitely find my YouTube channel. I'd appreciate a follow there, and TikTok as well. Like I don't want to poo-poo TikTok. Like I appreciate what it is and what it's done for me, and the Lego that I have purchased with my money from the TikTok Creator Fund. I'm not going to poo-poo that, but yeah, just
go follow Jeff on all of his social media platforms. We'll have them linked down in the show notes below. But right now, Jeff, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, hanging out with us today. It has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for being here. And play well, my friend.
Hey, thank you very much. And I know for you, like, you're probably seeing my face for the first time, but I've seen you on TikTok forever. So this is like talking to a celebrity. I'm like, am I just watching a video? No, this can't. I'm not really talking.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you so much, my friend. That's it's funny because just like you, I've only been on TikTok since January. So this is all such a weird, like, weird thing. So I appreciate that. I'm humbled by you, my friend. I look forward to speaking with you again. And I want you to know that this is a platform for you. So when you go on tour, let's get another episode. Let's get people out to those shows. So come back anytime. Anytime you have something exciting to share, just send me a message. And I'd love to have you on.
Much appreciated, my friend. Thanks for having me.